Hey, what's up, guys? It's Rico here, CEO of Sourcewine Asia, host of Made in China podcast, and the host of the Sourcewine Asia YouTube channel. Of course, back with another one. And I got to tell you, it feels so good to be back. A long time coming. I haven't spoken to John Graham Harper in a little bit over a year. You know, it's been weird with COVID. Like, I haven't been in the usual groove of podcasting, and everyone's like, isolated or in their home countries and things like that, sort of readjusting to life. So it was good to reconnect with him. I think this is the fifth time or fourth time we've had him on the podcast. If you didn't know anything about John's story, he essentially got stuck in China because he'd taken a loan from a potential business partner, and that loan, they had a falling out, and the guy who he borrowed the money from used the Chinese court system to kind of block John from going out of China. So the way it works in China is if you owe money and you took out a loan and you owe money and you can't pay it back, you can essentially get arrested and sent to jail. And then you have to come out and start paying. If you can't meet the payment plan or whatever, you go back to jail. So a lot of times what happens is people game the system, and they'll lend you money and then immediately file a court case saying that you can't pay, you haven't paid back the money, or you're failing to pay back the money or whatever. And then essentially what they're doing is trying to get you to pay back the money that you owe, but also settle out of court and give them more money. So it's like a system that they use to scam people. And this is essentially what happened with John. Is he planned on paying back the money that he owed. They had an agreement, just that they had a falling out, and then the guy registered the court case, and then John wasn't aware of the court case, so it kind of, they actually went to court, and he lost, obviously, because he didn't show up. And he tried to leave the country for Christmas, and they kind of took him to a back room in the airport and told him, hey, like, you owe this money and you lost this court case and all this stuff. So it was a pretty scary experience for him. But the last update is that he's paid off everything. We've had 4 episodes, I think, before, where we explained the story more in depth and what was going on and updates throughout the case. So if you want to go back and listen to those should be linked up in the show notes. But yeah, man, what I really enjoy about John is just like how positive he is about the experience. He's never been bitter about it. I mean, I'm sure there's some anger towards the guy, but in terms of China and the Chinese system and all that stuff, he's always done the thing that I always tell people to do, is like, instead of fighting against the system, work within the system. And a lot of times the system will work better for you if you work within the system. Of course, in this situation, he still ended up having to pay the money, but he's made a lot of friends, he's made a lot of connections, he's got a fucking story for life. We get to learn from his experience, so it was awesome. So yeah, without further ado, enjoy the podcast.
I notice when I walk outside, I hope this pays off. One day I chose it, one day, someday I hope it. Went in the big labels and saw plaques on walls, but I didn't post it. Didn't want to gas or boast it, that's not one of the things I'm made of. But one day will it pay off? Mum says I got to do music, and Dad says to not quit my day job. It's a hard one still, it's not fake, the bars are real. Sometimes I can rely on people's advice, I can't rely on pills. I notice now, things keep falling down. When they fall, I still build them up. Hard when you don't know how. Something's changed, yeah, you know the deal. At the end of the day, I'm over that one still. Over that once. When I play shows, I'm sober at none. Not from London, no, the accent. Not just talking, loads of action. Is this music or is it acting? One step forward, then go backwards. Think it makes me over anxious. Things can change, it's known to happen. I feel like I don't need people's help. And then when I think about it, I'm proud I could have been someone else.
Last time we spoke in depth would have been sometime last year. But I think the last time you were on the podcast was maybe even the year before that.
Yeah, time flies, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like 2020 is just like a wash. Like it's like a lot of people like, it's a write-off. Yeah, it's like a lot of people. I'm like, yeah, I spoke to you 6 months ago. It's like, no, actually, it was a year and a half ago. Like, but yeah, I think it was the last time we spoke. You were kind of transitioning with the court case. I know that in the end there was a settlement, which happened last year. I think the settlement, and then you've been sort of paying that off, and paid it off completely at this stage, right?
Yeah, it's basically this whole saga, this wonderful learning experience, this journey that I've been on that I love to talk about. I tell you, I thoroughly enjoy talking about it because foreigners, any expat doing business in China, they actually benefit a lot from the story. They can pick certain parts from it and then, they can apply it to sometimes with their situations. But all of this ended Christmas Eve 2021. On Christmas Eve, it was done. That was my big Christmas present, that this whole journey ended. It's not a happy ending in a sense that I want anything. It's a sad story because I had to pay a lot of money. I lost the appeal. No matter what the evidence that I had, it didn't actually count for much. I still had to pay out everything. But the good part is that I learned a lot. Obviously, it was a good lesson. I gained a lot of, friends, connections through this, and most importantly, I actually started a new business. I have a COVID baby now, bro. I have a COVID baby business. You get these people that are like, during COVID, they started a business and you're like, is this a COVID business? Like, yeah. COVID business. Yeah. So I have my own COVID business that I've started. I'm excited.
Well, it was kind of like when the economic crisis happened in 2008. There was a huge influx of entrepreneurs because a lot of people lost their jobs and had to figure out how to make money, and you had all these people starting businesses because of that. So
that's right. So now this is so I've got my own now, and I'm very, very happy about that. So it is, going back, probably the last time I talked to you, I was going for an appeal, right? So I was appealing. So the big mistake, anyone who wants to get freshened up on the story. So I had a business, I had a gym business. I couldn't handle this business. The costs were too high. The rent was high, the staffing. I was actually in debt. I owed management. I owed rent, right? So I took a loan to pay it off, and I was trying to figure out at the same time what to do with it, how to shift the responsibility. Do we close? How do we move everybody? How can we exit this in a proper way? So I took a loan, paid off all the debts for 1 month, thought maybe, I'll spin things around. I'll get a big, influx of members. I can pay off the next month's rent, but that's not how it went. I ended up having to take another loan. And then basically what I said to the guy that I took the loan from, who was very passionate about owning a business, he wanted to have his own gym. He had a lot of contacts that he felt he could use and push into the gym. So the short story is, I basically said, how about this? You give me that second loan, and now the gym's yours. The collateral, you own the gym, and I'll even work for you. I'll be a gym manager. I'll do what I do best. I'll be in the gym, training people, motivating the other trainers to work. So, and that was the agreement. And then we had a falling out. He got all upset. The details of that, you can see in some of the other media talks I've done. But
is there anything like any, I guess, any media you want to link up specific? Remember?
Oh, Michael Michelini, his show has been great, right?
Because I remember when we spoke going into your appeal, you were still at a stage where you couldn't really give all the specifics. Right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because then you kind of give away your strategy, right? And if the the plaintiff hears it, they may then prepare, in case the appeal goes through and we actually are in court, they may prepare stuff. But yeah, so it kind of like so we had a falling out. And then he left. He was threatening. He was like, "I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna break your legs." He was kind of talking big. And at the time, I just thought he was, I thought it was full of crap. So we broke communication. Delete. Don't talk to me. Leave me alone. You're just a joke. I would basically just thought like he's not serious. And then later on, I'm trying to leave the country, and I couldn't leave the country. And I was told I have a case, and I need to address the case first before I'm allowed to leave the country. So it took me about 2 months to even figure out what was going on, like connect all the dots of But basically what had happened is the entire case had gone through, the verdict had been given, and I was stuck with a verdict and a big bill that I had to pay. So I thought, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to am I going to pay this off? No, this is wrong. I'm going to fight this. So to fight it, I had to get a lawyer. Then the one lawyer that I did wasn't really confident. I didn't have a lot of confidence in that lawyer, so I changed lawyers. And then, we started to put together a plan. And the plan was to appeal the case in a court that was higher up than the court I was sued in. Good strategy. I'm not saying it wouldn't work if anyone else tried this. Maybe it does depend a little bit on the lawyer. As of today, I do know a lawyer that I think, actually Michael Michelini's lawyer, who I feel probably would have been able to navigate the middle court, the higher court, rather than the Chen High Court. She probably could have navigated it a bit better. But long story short, I put the appeal in. It took over a year for them to finally review the appeal, and then they just rejected it. And they rejected it purely based on the time that I had to make an appeal was up, and that was it. Even the lawyer that gave me this news, they said it looks like even though you had the evidence, you did show everything clearly, like this was a wrong case, this was false, this is a trick, he's a scammer. The evidence, they couldn't acknowledge it. They just had to simply stick with the rule is you had this much time to make the appeal, that time left, and now, we just have to, we can't continue on. So, but during the time when I was trying to make the appeal, the plaintiff actually pushed the enforcement court to come after me. And it's something that expats, you do need to watch out for this. If there is some legal way that you owe money, based on the circumstance, based on the case, the plaintiff can actually go and push the enforcement court. And this is different to the actual court. It's a different building. It's a whole different system. And the enforcement court has a whole judge list as well. It has people going in and out. It's a whole nother part of the whole legal system here. So they can push the enforcement court to come after you and pressure you for money. So that's what happened to me. I was actually at one of my boxing events, and the enforcement judge walked in with a translator, 2 court representatives, another like a lower level judge, and 4 cops. They all walked in as I'm in the event, in stage with the microphone, welcoming everybody to this boxing fight I'm hosting, right? So that was a tough night. That took like 3 hours of negotiation. I'm just racing through the story for anyone who's just listening in. But of course, you could go back to the previous episodes, and obviously on my page, you can see a lot of the old episodes and everything. So yeah, it was like a 3-hour negotiation, and basically I realized that that's when I learned about what the enforcement court is. They're here, they're pressuring me for money. That's what's happening. Like, it's either I make a payment plan, I talk about money, or I'm going to detention. I'm not going to use the word, even though they said the word jail to me on that day, they were wrong. You're actually supposed to say detention, because as an expat, I think they write a letter to your embassy. They write a very quick letter. And by China law, any expat can be detained for 15 days without fully notifying your embassy, meaning like I don't call my embassy and work out some arrangement. There's a letter that they can write up, send it to the embassy, and then just grab me, put me in detention. And that was the option. It was that or start talking money. So started talking money, and we came out with a payment plan. I signed off on it, good to go. All right, this is it. But because I'm thinking the appeal, right? I'm thinking I've also got the appeal. So yeah, maybe I'll have to pay a few months, but then the appeal's going to go through. Then the enforcement court's going to stop, and then I can fight it. I can get the money back, right? But yeah, that didn't work out. The appeal got rejected. So I ended up just having to pay. I just hustled, didn't borrow anything. I didn't want to put pressure on any of my friends, my family. I just said, I'll bite the bullet. I'll figure it out. If it means you have to work day and night, you've got another whole, 8-hour slot that you use for sleeping. There's ways that you can figure your shit out. I managed to do it. I managed to get it done. So it was, it was good learning experience, but I'm stronger for it.
Quick question with enforcement court that day when they come and then you have to start talking about money. What is that conversation when you start to talk about how you're going to pay them back?
Yeah.
Pay them? Like how do they just take your word on it? Do you have to sign? I guess you have to sign some documents. Do you have to make a payment in that moment? Like what's happening there?
Yeah, so they'll make it very clear. They'll be like, you're going to jail, and I'll be like, I'm not going to jail. They're like, well, you have to pay, and I was like, well, I can't pay everything now. And then they'll say, okay, like what can you pay? What can you write? So you start formulating and negotiating the contract right there. And the plaintiff is the one that actually brings them to find you. Like for them to actually know exactly where you are at that time, the enforcement court's not that easy to move. You have to push them to work for you. They won't just go walk the streets and start looking for you. Like they need to know what time is he gonna be there. Okay, they need to be sort of organized, right? But yeah, the enforcement judge was there the whole time. And throughout the entire time of enforcement payments, I met up with the judge a couple of times because I actually went in to argue it. I was like, this is outrageous. I want to renegotiate. And she was like, no, if you sign that document, you have to pay. So I was like, all right, like I tried everything. I've tried every little angle from the law as possible, bringing evidence in, showing that they do not care about the old case. They don't care about the appeals. All they care about is exactly what they're trying to do, and that is to get money out of you, right? But yeah, towards the end, it got a little bit tense because he claimed that I paid late and he wanted more money. So I went into the enforcement court and I asked for the judge, and I was arguing. I was like, he is stealing. Like this isn't right anymore. And actually, to be honest, she agreed. She was like, yeah, it was such an ironic thing. The judge was saying, yeah, like he's not a good person. We know this, but he is using the law. He knows like all the little clauses and sub clauses. He knows how to use it.
Because this is what he does.
Yeah. They were like, yeah, this is, and it's so ironic because she said it, and then the assistant was like, they were like, yeah, we know they were both kind of like, I was like, well, it's nice to at least that they know where I'm coming from. But they were like, but our hands are tied. Like we in our position, we have to honor these certain, points and everything, that this is part of the whole legal system in China. And yes, people can abuse it. People can use it to trick people. This is what happens. You're just the unlucky guy, so what are you going to do? Right. So I was like, yeah, I guess I'm going to pay. So I ended up actually even having to pay more than what was on the contract, as a quote unquote penalty, right? That it was like a little gray area, that even though I had my case, it was so far into it. We were almost at the end. It was just a case of like, okay, I'll pay it. Let's be done with it. Right. I've got the rest of my life to make this back and to smile about it, but let's not go backwards now. Let's not U-turn and, let's get this finished and move forward, get 2020 over and done with. So yeah, Christmas Eve, that was the day it was all done. And I'm very, very happy about it. I'm thankful to everyone who did support and helped share the story out, even though we didn't have the outcome we wanted to. I like to think that I did learn from it, and at the end of the day, I'll be better for it. We're talking, it was about 400,000 RMB that I ended up having to pay out. This cost me, but I don't want to think about it.
Is that including lawyer fees or
lawyer fees? Yeah. Lawyer fees weren't that high because the agreement I tried to make with the lawyer that she could help me, that I could pay her, but then maybe that wasn't a good idea. It probably wasn't a good idea to do that, maybe, but then I would have had to probably have paid much more. So my lawyer fees were actually quite small, very, very quite small. It coulda, shoulda, woulda. There's a lot of things I probably should have done. And the more I think about it, it's just not healthy. It's better just to try to put it behind you and move forward. Yeah. kind of learn from it.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. At some stage, it's like if you're fighting something and you're sort of fighting a losing battle, it gets to a stage where it's like the effort that you're putting in ends up just draining you, and it's like, okay, I just need to put this behind me and move on with my life. It's not worth the mental strain and the issues that you're dealing with. I guess one last question I had about that whole situation is, you mentioned the middle court and the Shanghai court. What else do you think your lawyers could have done differently?
Okay, so yeah, that's a very, very good question, because I think about that a lot. So one thing my lawyer didn't tell me is about the enforcement court. Nobody told me about this. I had no idea that building even existed. And in Shenzhen, where I'm based, that building is it's a massive building. It's like a freaking skyscraper. And I've asked, like, what else is this building for? And they're like, no, this is just enforcement. This isn't even like court or there's no law firms in there. This is just enforcement. It's a massive, dark, Gotham-looking building that is in Shenzhen that I had no idea existed. So the lawyer should have told me about that. They should have told me that, yes, we're appealing. It's gonna, this is great. You're gathering evidence. I spent months gathering evidence, like WeChat groups, and calling people up and saying, could you provide this statement? Can you provide that receipt? I spent so much time getting evidence to package it and then make the appeal. I had no idea that he was able to activate this part of the legal system and have the enforcement court come after me. If I knew that, I would have done things differently. I would have done things very differently, because then the strategy would have changed to perhaps like negotiation. I would have seen, or I would have looked at, there's a lot of other options that I would have done, because I would have known that this could happen, right? That they could come for me, right? So I would have planned accordingly. But that event, like I talked about with the event where I was sitting in, with the microphone in the ring and everyone's coming in and they came, that was a very shocking night. I had no idea. Like I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't have a strategy for it. And I just kind of like, it was 3 hours of negotiation. It was to the point where they were like, I wasn't budging. Like I wasn't saying yes. And they were like, okay, we're going to jail. And I was like holding the table. I was like, no, we're staying here. Like and I was like, can I come tomorrow? Can I pay you some money, or can I give you my passport? And then I go, and then and they were just like, no. And that night I learned about that. And that would have been very helppful to have known that, because I would have had a different strategy. For sure. There was one other thing, because I remember there were two things. There's one other thing, but I can't remember it right now. I think that was the main thing, the main mistake that I would have to say, with respect, that that was the mistake the lawyer did. They did not tell me about this, the enforcement court.
How do you feel? I guess one thing a lot of people think about is the sort of legal system in China and how that works, and then especially as a foreigner navigating that. How do you feel about it now? I think when you first started, you were optimistic, and you understood that it's going to be difficult, obviously, because of language barriers, and it's just a different system completely from what we're accustomed to in the West and stuff like that. But what are your thoughts on just the Chinese legal system as a whole and how it works?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? There's a couple of different ways to think about it in that way. Like I know that there's a lot of foreigners, a lot of expats here that have been in court and they've won. I know a lot of stories where people have like won, trade rights deals and, trademarking and stuff like that. There's been a lot of cases where they've won. Then there's a few expats that have, it hasn't gone in their favor. But then most importantly is, the Chinese, they do this a lot to themselves as well. Like this horror stories that I have, it actually happens all the time.
I'm sure it's more. Right? It's actually probably more common towards Chinese, like between each other.
Yeah. So you're always thinking like it's. I don't. And actually, right when this was all ending on Christmas Eve, when I was I had the enforcement judge. I have her WeChat. She gave me her WeChat, right? And just talking to her, and when she
That's
told
also
me that thing,
that's also a thing that would only happen in China. As you
yeah,
adding
that's
your
right.
imagine being being to be taken to jail in the States or in Canada and getting the judge's WhatsApp. Like,
Yeah, could you
like,
just, would you mind? Yeah, sure.
yeah.
Yeah, like but
What are you up to?
I
I'm just texting
remember,
my judge.
yeah, if I remember that day, and I remember when I told her that, and I was like, he's a really bad man. I remember when she said, yes, we know, like we know your situation in this, we know you're right, we know all that. When she said that, I was like, oh, it felt good, right? So it kind of made me think like, yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say the legal system is biased here. I think you just need to be one step ahead. And it does apply to everyone, right? After she said that, I was kind of like, yeah, I think I was just too slow. If I was quicker, because the big mistake I made in all of this is I just didn't acknowledge that I had a case. I probably, like I've said in previous times,
at the beginning, you didn't know.
At the very beginning, I'm sure someone called me. I probably had one phone call and I just didn't recognize the number and I was like hung up. So I tell everyone that probably do answer the phone. And but also I did tell the judge, I said, I did tell her, like I was like, that's the problem, I didn't know about it. And I said, you probably should call me more. You can't just call me once.
So
and
they
then if I don't
literally
answer,
they only called one time.
It's like, I think 1 or 2 times. They'll call you once,
They don't even
and then
send a
they'll
text
wait
message
2
or
days,
something like that,
and
like-
that's it. Yeah, yeah, text
even
message,
send-
or do just constant calling. Don't call, miss the call, wait 3 days, and then call again, because you should
You don't
call,
even recognize-
call.
You don't even recognize the number at that stage. Like if you get a random phone call from a number you don't recognize, and then that number calls you 2 or 3 times afterwards, then you go, okay, maybe this is somebody that I know, and then I'll pick up. But if you just get one, and then it's like 3 days later, it's like, okay, I don't remember this number anyways.
That's right. And you could be busy again, and you could just be like, I don't have time right now. So that's it. You missed your opportunity.
I guess.
Bare times I think, what's the point? Do or die's a flip off the coin. I've come too far to turn back, so win or win is my only choice. I release songs they think it's for them, it's a cry for help, but they miss the point. What's mad is when I speak for them, I feel like I lose my voice. Yeah. But I can't linger or dwell on things. Yesterday's gone, it's been better since. Still outside and I'm settled in. Still more scared than I ever been. Still feel blessed like I never sinned.